Cob or mass earth is one of the simplest and most widespread methods of earth building. It is now most common in the southwest of England, in Devon, Somerset and Cornwall, where there are thousands of cob buildings. But it can also be found in other parts of the UK where it has regional names and slight differences in technique, such as clom in Wales, mudwall in Scotland and clay dabbing in Cumbria. In places with clay chalk subsoil, such as the South Downs, it's called chalk cob, and in Buckinghamshire it's known as witchert or white earth. In the Midlands it's simply called mud. Cob is made by mixing clay subsoil and straw into a plastic sticky workable mass, sometimes with added sand. Stony clay-rich soils were common, but they could also be fine or silty. The straw was added to the mix to help bind it together, reduce shrinkage cracking and increase tensile strength. In Cumbria, straw was laid in distinct layers between the lifts. When repairing an old cob building, local soil can be used for a compatible match, but the mix can also be optimised to improve its performance.
The clay is the hardener. That's its principal role. And once it's mixed and dry, i.e. set, it's incredibly hard. And that hardness comes from the clay. The clay binds the aggregate together. The aggregate is important within the mix. When combined with the clay, it gives the cob and the end product its strength.
Cob walls are traditionally built on top of a masonry plinth, which holds them above groundwater and rain splash.
When we build up in layers, 4 or 5 inches at a time, the mix is of the right consistency. We can achieve nearly 2 foot of cob in one go, but the mix does have to be absolutely spot on. If it's too wet, it will just belly and sag under its own weight and drop out here and there. If it's too dry, we wouldn't be able to stomp it to achieve that compression.
The cob walls are then pared back with a spade or beaten with a fork to achieve an even face before being left to dry. Sometimes the building would stand over winter to allow the surface to tighten before finishes were applied.
Traditionally, cob walling wouldn't have had renders as we know them today. They would have been left bare, or they may have had lime wash.
Cob walls need simple, regular maintenance to protect them from being eroded by water, attacked by plants and animals, and to allow walls to breathe. Cob is generally a very durable material, but there can be problems from damage or decay, typically if water gets into the walls or there is movement in the foundations. Cracks in the surface are a sure sign that repair is needed. Cracks should always be investigated by someone experienced with cob. For big repairs, damaged areas are cut out and new cob placed in. Often this is done with pre-dried blocks of cob laid in mortar. These repairs can be stitched into the old wall and tied with stainless steel helical screws.
They're laid like conventional bricks and blocks and can receive renders and plasters almost immediately. There's no curing times, there's no drying times. So they can be introduced relatively quickly.
Repairs at the top of the wall can be done in traditional cob but take longer to dry. But by far the most common problems are caused by non-breathable surface coatings being put on cob walls, which trap moisture and encourage decay. It is never appropriate to put cement renders or plastic paints on cob walls. This can lead to surface decay, timbers rotting and, in extreme cases, collapse of the walls. It may be necessary to remove harmful modern finishes and reapply a more appropriate finish.
As long as you maintain your roof, as you would do with any house you're going to live in, then, the walls will stay. As long as you don't put modern materials with them, like cement, which is a lot of my job is removing old cement and redoing it with lime, then they will last hundreds of years, if not thousands.
There are experienced architects and craftspeople across the UK who can advise owners and help maintain cob buildings.
So here's a message to everyone that owns a cob building. Keep it dry, ensure the right materials are have been used or are proposed to be used if there's any alterations or restoration required. If in doubt, call a specialist.